You're on 94.9. It is 16 minutes past 4 and it's Tuesday afternoon. That means Creation Ministries International. Don't forget you can send your questions through at any time. Just text us 0401 949 949. Now this afternoon we have Dr. Michael Thompson, who's up in Queensland. He has a bachelor's degree with honours in electrical engineering and a doctorate in coastal engineering from the University of Queensland. Should know lots about floods and all that sort of stuff. And Dr. Michael Thompson's here with us this afternoon. Good afternoon, Dr. Michael Thompson.
G'day, Mick. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you. And I believe you'll be sharing about how tropical cyclones might be a key factor in Noah's flood. And before we get into that, Michael, well, we've had a lot of rain this year. In fact, a lot of rain for the last few years, which has caused some, pretty serious flooding. Michael, could you tell us a bit about where all this rain has been coming from?
Yeah. Well, it's certainly up in Queensland. It's been relentless through summer and even into autumn. It's only just starting to clear up now. But a lot of the rain actually is in line with a long-term weather pattern called La Niña. So people might have heard of that on the news reports or the weather person talking about it. And it's essentially it's a pattern in the water temperatures or the ocean temperatures in the Pacific Ocean.
Yep.
Where you get more warm water near our coast on the east side, and more cold water on the towards South America on the east from us. And what happens is because of all the warm water, we get heaps of rain, big long rainy seasons. Mm-hmm. And we've had usually it's only sometimes you might get a La Niña event every just throughout the summer or maybe 6 months or so. But we've had back-to-back La Niñas and for a number of years. So it feels like the rain just keeps coming.
Yes, it's switching now, isn't it, to a El Niño?
I think it's on its way to it's sort of becoming neutral, and then the El Niño's predicted. I've heard that they're predicting that we're probably going to get a very long El Niño or back-to-back El Niños in the next few years. So that usually coincides with drought for us on the east coast of Australia. So it's good all the dams are pretty full now, but it's always one or the other in Australia. We got to work with the extremes. But I guess another thing that we get with La Niña, which will be a bit of a nice break from when we go into El Niño or neutral, is we actually get a lot of tropical cyclones up north as well. So we've had a lot in the last few years, and hopefully we'll get less of them as the weather system changes a bit too.
Yeah, right. So that's something that you've seen, like, La Niña will have more cyclones than El Niño?
Yeah. Well, a lot of it's to do with the water, the sea surface temperature. So in my coastal engineering degree, I used to always check the wave buoy. It's like public data on the internet. You can check what the wave height is for, surfers might look at that.
Yep.
But also the direction of the swell. And one of the things that they often have on those wave buoy devices that's public information is the sea surface temperature. Mm-hmm. And if anyone's checked the graphs, there's a little dotted line that says above this line is when you'll get tropical cyclones, and especially in Queensland because we get warmer water. So when you got La Niña and all that warmer water is closer to our side of the world, or round the globe, then it's more likely you get water temperatures above about 27 degrees Celsius. And once you get above that water temperature, especially up north, tropical cyclones are much more likely to form.
That's really interesting. I was up there only a couple of months ago, and I got there literally like a week after that cyclone blew through, and there was boats sunken in the harbour and stuff around Early Beach, and the water out in the Whitsundays was like 28 degrees. So that pretty much fits your prediction there of cyclones and warmth.
Yeah, it can almost be. Some of the water temperatures we had in summer, up that near that 26, 27 degrees, you almost it's almost unpleasantly warm. Sometimes you go to the beach in summer and you hope to cool down.
Yeah, well, I went
warm.
snorkeling and I had to fall off the back of the boat. And I can remember just preparing for that, that chill. And as I hit the water, there was just no chill. And I thought, oh, that was kind of underwhelming. I was hoping for a little bit of a chill.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it does get very warm.
Yeah, so cyclones, actually, I'm sure that communities up north will be glad to hear that we're moving out of La Niña events. They've had a lot of cyclones to deal with. Tell us about tropical cyclones and Noah's flood. Do you think this could have had anything to do with all the rain during the flood?
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting idea, and I think there's actually some, in terms of how we understand how weather works on a global scale, and these, localized but very large events like cyclones and the way they form, I think it's actually pretty likely. And of course, the Bible doesn't give us description of cyclones and things. It's only got so much detail about Noah's flood. And at the end of the day, we want to hold firm to what the Bible says.
Yep.
And then we can try and connect the dots with models and make plausible, ideas of what could have happened, which is exciting. But at the end of the day, we've got to remember, it's a little bit speculative, but it's interesting to think about. And people who have thought about this have suggested that 40 days and nights of rain, which was the early stages of the flood. I remember when I was in kids' church, I just remembered the 40 days and nights, and I thought, that's how long the flood was.
Yes.
But of course, the Bible says it's about a year long. But those 40 days and nights of rain, we don't really get that today, that consistent rain for that many days. It's something very different that happened back then.
Yeah.
And one of the driving factors that could have caused that could have been what some creation scientists have called as hypercanes or super cyclones. So the idea is that the ocean temperature, because of a lot of moving continents and tectonic activity and underwater volcanoes, very catastrophic event as the flood waters are rising, you'll have these super warm patches of water above these underwater volcanoes, and the whole ocean temperature would be much warmer. And in these little areas, little pockets of very hot water, they estimate around 45 degrees Celsius. So
oh, wow.
Really hot water for the ocean. Now, that's not the whole ocean, that's just localized spots. Is that would drive, just like warm waters off our coast increase the chance of cyclones.
Yep.
When you've got hot spots like that, you could actually get these cyclones that can produce 10 times the rain of the biggest ones we see today.
Wow.
So there's an idea there that could have been part of, may not have been all of the causes, but could have been part of what caused a lot of the rain in the early stages of Noah's flood.
Yeah, wow, 10 times the rain, but 45 degrees, that is very warm water for the ocean. I mean, we've never seen anything like that these days. What about some of the, the volcanoes that we see around the world? We hear about, underwater volcanoes and quite often see these floating rocks which come from those underwater volcanoes. Would they get that hot?
Well, a lot of the like the volcanic geology that we see around the place. So in Australia, for example, there's the Tweed Volcano on the border of New South Wales and Queensland, or it's close to the border.
Yep.
And it's massive. It's the shield of the volcano, it would have been a shield volcano, but it's almost like a crater shape if you look at it on Google Maps. It would have been absolutely enormous, and it's got all this evidence of erosion in the way that it's steep on one side and gentle on the other side, and that tends to point towards the ocean, as the floodwaters would have, carved that out most likely. But that most likely would have been an underwater volcano at the time of the flood.
Yep.
And when you've got a volcano that's that big, if I get my numbers right, I think it was roughly 40 kilometers wide or something, but you don't get volcanoes to that scale you get some big ones today, but some of the the evidence in the rocks that shows how big volcanoes were during the flood,
Yep.
get some absolutely massive ones. Yeah.
Wow, that makes sense then, doesn't it? You're on 94.9 this afternoon. It is 27 minutes past 4. We're going to go into a little break. We've got CC Winans, That's My King, up next. And we'll have a bit of a break. We'll come back to Dr. Michael shortly. If you have any questions, send them through to our text line 0401 949 949. You're on 94.9. It's 22 minutes to 5. And we have Dr. Michael Thompson from Creation Ministries International on the line. Look, if you have any questions, you can always go to creation.com to get answers. They've got thousands of pages of answers there. But, yeah, of course, some people have questions, some people have comments. And I actually have one now from this chat we're having with Dr. Michael Thompson, the Savo, in regards to, well, we were talking about how under the ocean there was lots of volcanoes and stuff during the Great Flood. And one of them is a really big one in Queensland. And, yeah, I've just pushed the wrong button on this thing that has the question written there. Here we go. It says the name of the volcano is called the Caldera. Mount Warning is in the middle of it, just out of Murwillumbah. 4 rivers drain out of it to the coast, the main being the Tweed, which is when flood rises 15 metres. Is that correct?
Yeah. So they call it erosion. The caldera is like the shape of it's almost like a crater shape, but sometimes that can form in a volcano from the volcano sort of exploding out. Yep. But then there's another type called an erosion caldera, which is what the Tweed volcano is, because they recognize, even a secular geologist recognised this one had to be eroded the way that it is.
Okay.
But yeah. No, sounds like you've got some very knowledgeable listeners with the geology. It's fantastic.
So what, you can actually see that it's been eroded from water?
Yeah, well, the way that it's shaped and it's very much got features of it being erosion. And even what's interesting is the plug in the middle, which is the Mount Warning, which your listener mentioned.
Yep.
It would have been a much harder rock that had solidified in the middle of the volcano, sort of in the heart of the volcano. And then after the erosion, all the softer material gets eroded away, and the really hard rock of the heart of the volcano stays. And there's other mountains like that, the Glasshouse Mountains at the Sunshine Coast. And
wow.
Yeah, so it's quite a prominent feature.
Wow. Okay, well, now look, there's something else I was interested in knowing was the categorisation system. You know, we hear of Category 1, 2 and 3 cyclones. What does that all mean?
Yeah, so the number is, well, first of all, the Category 1 is the lowest strength. So you might have heard of a low pressure system,
Mm-hmm.
which usually when we get a big storm, thunderstorm, it's a low pressure system. But then as that just gets stronger, then they decide, okay, time to start calling it a cyclone or a tropical cyclone. So Category 1 is the next level up, and you go all the way out to Category 5. So it's the numbers are pretty much based on wind speed. So I've got here the Category 1 is the lowest strength, with maximum mean wind speed of 63 to 88 kilometres per hour.
So those East Coast lows that we see, would they be in that sort of zone?
They would actually give it a new name if it was in that wind speed range and say it's a Category 1 cyclone.
Okay.
So if they call it an East Coast low, it's not. They'd actually rename it. It's a Category 1 cyclone if it reaches those wind. So those wind speeds are over a 10-minute period. The average wind speed at the fastest wind speed part of the cyclone.
Okay.
For 10 minutes has been, average 63 to 88 kilometers per hour. So you might get a big gust of wind from an East Coast low. But what you need to get the Category 1 is sustained wind speeds at that high speed for at least 10 minutes.
Right, okay.
And there's a few other parameters too about how long the whole event happens. But you could get a wind gust for Category 1 of up to 125 kilometres per hour for a Category 1 cyclone. And then you've got Category 5, which gets a bit ridiculous. You got mean wind speed of greater than 200 kilometers per hour.
Wow.
And that means you've got strong gusts, which, come and go,
Yep.
approaching 300 kilometers per hour. So very devastating. And to give perspective, people might have heard of Cyclone Yasi in 2011, and that was in North Queensland, and it had gusts. It was a Category 5, and it had gusts of 285 kilometers per hour. So, that's the sort of scale of a Category 5 cyclone, which is absolutely devastating. So when you think about how devastating that is today, and that potentially during the flood there could have been localized events of much 10 times bigger cyclones. The modelling they did, I think it was about wind speeds could be around 500 kilometres per hour.
Wow.
For some of these things. So it's, very strong systems. 500
k's an hour. You couldn't stand up in that. I guess the next question is, how could they have the Ark staying afloat in conditions like that? I mean, it would have had some decent waves and wind and everything else.
Yeah, it's a good point. Well, I think the first thing is because some of the models we've got for Noah's flood, it would have to be catastrophic and very damaging if it's going to rip up all the sediments on the earth and redeposit them.
Yep.
It's very violent. And so it's a common question. People go, well, how could all that happen? And Noah's little ark, which is, pretty big, but not big compared to the scale of all these things, how's it going to survive? But I guess the first thing is the Bible. It's clear that God made a promise to Noah before the flood saying that he's going to save Noah through the ark.
Yep.
And of course, the design is actually quite stable. There's plenty of experiments to show that the dimension and design of Noah's Ark is actually a very stable design.
Okay.
But even then, if that ark crosses paths with a hypercane, or some of the volcanic activity in some areas, ways the continents are splitting and things like that, which we think is what happened, it's probably going to sink. So I think beyond just the design of the ark, I think it's reasonable that if God brought this, miraculous flooding event or initiated it in a way, and he made that promise to Noah, and he's the creator of the universe, then he can do it in such a way that the boat, the ark will float, in safe paths. And of course, these cyclones and volcanic activity, it's not going to be everywhere at the same time.
Yep.
And so there would be, for example, when there's a cyclone in northern Queensland, where I'm in Brisbane, we'll actually get rain or windy conditions for a while. But it's only when you're near the centre of the cyclone that you're in the path of destruction, or then that can be quite wide, but it's not going to cover the whole state. So while you've got these events happening, and they can be absolutely devastating in the path of them, you'll still get the rain further down and wind, but not to a destructive scale.
Yes.
So that's one of the key points there. But I think what's kind of nice for me when I think about this and read in the New Testament in the Bible is that the New Testament authors, there's a few that actually point back to Noah's flood, and they actually relate it to Jesus' salvation for us. And they point to how when Noah's Ark was the way that Noah could be saved from the destruction of the whole earth and all these sinful people who weren't saved. And by God's grace, he saved Noah through the ark. And there's New Testament parallels that talk about the same thing about Jesus and saying we've got such a sinful, broken world and it's going to be judged one day. But if we believe in Jesus and we hold to him and put our faith in him, then just like Noah was saved on the ark, we're going to be saved by Jesus. And so when I think about all these incredible, devastating things that would have happened during the flood, and God's hand of protection over Noah in the ark.
Yep.
It's a bit like, Jesus has got that. He's saving us and he's protecting us through all these things and what's to come as well. So it's I actually find this all quite reassuring and comforting. Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, look, I know our time's almost at the end. However, another question's just come through. Is there any evidence for drop stones being installed to hang under the ark?
Drop stones. I'm assuming they're talking about. I know this. I'm not sure if I understand the question, but if I get this right, I know in Japan they've got certain buildings where they actually have a suspended weight at the top of the building, and so when there's an earthquake or rocking, it can actually stabilize the building.
Yep.
I wonder if they're thinking whether that could.
I'm thinking this is probably underneath the ark, sort of keeping
underneath.
it upright. Yeah.
Yeah, as a sort of like a weighted keel almost to sort of give it more stability.
Kind of, yeah.
I don't know about that. I mean, the modelling that they did to check the stability of the ark designs didn't include any extra apparatus like a, lowered down weights to give more stability and reduce the rock of the ark.
Okay, so it was stable without any extras anyway. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and in deep water, you might have big waves, but waves don't get as steep in deep water. And so if the ark's following deep water areas, it can actually withstand, I think the modelling they showed was like 30-metre waves. And so it's quite it seems like it's quite stable, but I guess we don't get all the details in of what else there might have been. But based on what the Bible says, I don't, I'm not sure, but I don't think, it sounds like it would have been pretty stable the way it was.
Fair enough. They might have put the elephants at the bottom anyway.
That's right. It would have helped.
All righty. Well, look, I think our time's up at the moment. Dr. Michael, we've got you again next week, which is awesome. So, look, if anybody else has got any questions, please send them through. Dr. Michael will be with us next week. Don't forget, creation.com is the website. They've got thousands of pages of information. You can type questions in. Answers will come up, and Dr. Michael will be here next week to answer questions as well. Thank you so much, Dr. Michael, for this week.
Thanks, Mick.